Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Not That Bad, a movie podcast. The podcast where we take movies that people don't like and we tell you why they're not that bad. And today we have a part two of our video game movie special. Oh boy, this is gonna be a fun one. I'm really excited about this. But before we get into it, I don't want to jump the gun on anything. We got to get our introductions out of the way. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am one of your hosts. My name is Connor, aka the Gabagoomba, and I am joined today and every day by my illustrious co-host, Mr. Gabe Tice. Gabe, how you doing today, buddy?
Anyone who thinks that The Last of Us is the best video game adaptation has clearly never seen the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh my god, this is gonna be fucking awesome.
Because we are going to be defending, among other things, the infamous Super Mario Brothers movie from the 1990s. I believe it is the first adaptation of a video game ever. And given how it went, I'm kind of surprised they tried it again and again and again. I mean, this is where the video game movie curse really stems from. And this movie is what do you call this, like a cult movie in any sense now?
I think it's growing in cult status. I think it needs some more time, but I have seen more and more appreciation for this every year. In fact, there's even a huge online community that helped put together a sort of director's cut of this film that's available to watch online. That's actually longer. There was footage that was cut from the movie that helped with the story, and so there is a growing community online that appreciates this movie. So not quite cult status yet, but it's getting there. I'm gonna refer to it as a cult classic because I think by the time this you know gets by the time we get to the point where everybody's seeing this, I think that's gonna be what happens. But we're getting there.
So are we going to release this episode in like 30 years or 40 years?
No, it's close enough. It's close enough that I think it'll get there.
Yeah. Okay, that's super interesting. I actually didn't know that there was already like an online community. Okay, tell me, what do you think is more popular, this or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? Of the two, which has more credit as a cult movie?
Ooh. I would say probably this due to the length of time, because like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is not that old, so I don't think that it's had as much time to breathe as this movie has.
I think
Because I don't see
nostalgia is
whole
going to be like a big thing in how
right.
people look back at this movie.
Exactly. So that's why I think I would put Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 just underneath it.
Mhm.
But Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is a masterpiece. I'm not going to get into how I feel about this yet because I'm really fucking jazzed to talk about it today.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But last time we talked about the Mortal Kombat movie, which does not have a great reputation. If it did, we wouldn't have talked about it on our show.
Mhm.
But in that I alluded to the fact that, compared to most video game adaptations, it is actually like one of the more esteemed
Yes.
video game adaptations pre The Last of Us. And this is the type of movie I was talking about when I said that. I mean, it's like really hard to like put in context what a weird disaster this was when it was released in the early 90s. And there's some interesting behind the scenes details about this movie that we'll get into as it goes along, because I think it really explains how the movie turned out. But ostensibly, it seems like this movie would have had a chance. It had actually like a really good cast. Like it had some pretty ambitious ideas going on there. And when Nintendo allowed for an adaptation of Super Mario Brothers, they actually allowed the filmmakers to take a more experimental approach. That was actually part of the agreement. They wanted to see something that wasn't just a straightforward adaptation. And I think you and I have complained a lot about those adaptations that are slavishly loyal or like really pandering to the fans. So I don't know. The fact that this movie has the reputation that it has makes it one of the more fascinating films that we're probably ever going to talk about.
Yeah, it's interesting. They said you couldn't defend Halloween Resurrection, and somehow we did that. They said you
And
couldn't
you did that,
defend.
I think, more than I
Well,
did. Yeah.
well, most of what I'm about to say are my picks, but
Yeah.
Halloween Resurrection. We're talking. I mean, Star Wars Episode 1 and 2. These are all movies that
Mhm.
are tall tasks to come on the show and defend. And Batman Forever is also a part of that category. And it's interesting as time has gone on, we've proven time and time again that we, or mostly me, can defend these awful movies, and we're going to see if today's film can stand that test, because this is a movie that is considered one of the worst video game adaptations of all time, and that's in the same category of what, 3 or 4 Uwe Boll films.
Yep.
And this caused Nintendo to refuse to make any live action films for years. In fact, they didn't have any involvement in live action filmmaking until 2019 in Detective Pikachu. So that kind of shows you the taste that this put in their mouths. And we're gonna see if it puts that taste in our mouths by the end of today's episode. So let's start diving into this, man. I want to
Oh, I'm
know,
hyped.
obviously
I'm
we
hyped.
gotta we gotta talk about the bad eventually, but right now I want to focus on the positive for us.
Yeah.
Why don't you get us started off in something that you did enjoy about this movie?
So I expected this, and I was right. That Bob Hoskins was going to be the most endearing part of this movie. He was probably the best casting choice they could have gotten. I'm sure Danny DeVito was probably considered, or one of those types of guys.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I really think that Bob Hoskins, other than the fact that he doesn't do the Mario voice, which I'm actually pretty grateful for, he's solid casting. Anytime I smiled, chuckled, had any positive reaction, it was due to his performance. His Mario is like a gruff working class Brooklyn plumber with a heart of gold, and that's right up his alley. That's what we love Bob for, is lending humor and warmth and heart to what could be a very cartoonish character. This is right after Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where he
Yes, it
was
is.
acting opposite of literal cartoons. So I think he was probably the best guy to get from Mario. And I imagine a lot of people, when they saw his name on the poster, were actually really jazzed. Like, they got Bob Hoskins. Fuck yeah! That's like getting Jack Nicholson for the Joker. This is gonna be the best video game movie ever. Regardless of how that turned out, he's a big positive for me.
Dude, I'm glad to hear you say that. And my first that leads me to my first positive, which does include Bob Hoskins. I like the pair. I do. I like the pair together. I think they work
Mm.
well together. I like, it's funny because like you said that Bob Hoskins was the perfect pick for Mario, and in my opinion, there was no better pick back then for Mario. But I also like John Leguizamo's them selecting him as Luigi. I think in theory it works very well, and I think
In
with
theory, is kind
chemistry.
of key there, isn't?
Well, I think they got chemistry together. I
Huh.
enjoy their banter back and forth. I enjoy, and I don't think either of them do a bad job at
Sure.
all.
No, no, there
So,
are moments
yeah.
where their chemistry is very charming, and very endearing. It's very uneven though. It's very mixed. Like, I'm very mixed on John Leguizamo's Luigi. I'm a big fan of John Leguizamo. He's like one of our great character actors. I love
Oh
that
yeah.
dude. But this is before he figured out the magic. He brings a very certain kind of charisma to the roles that he is most iconic for.
Right.
And Luigi uh, is played here like very naive, borderline stupid, kind of like he has this childlike energy. And not that Luigi is the most fleshed out video game character in the world, but that's just not what I pictured for the character. So it's not a good one to one like Bob Hoskins was for me. But I will agree that their dynamic was like one of those elements of the movie that definitely worked in theory, and had spots where it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that too, because I know for most people that's not going to be a strong point for them. I've seen a lot of complaints about the casting in this movie across the board. Bob Hoskins is usually the least contested amongst them,
Mm.
but Leguizamo is one of those people who does get a lot of flack thrown towards him because of his performance in this, and I will agree. Like he doesn't have his, you get used to the sort of swagger that he has later in his career, and
Yeah.
it's not here. He feels a little bit more uncomfortable, but there's some moments in this that he really does shine, and it does come through. So I appreciate that for that. But their banter back and forth, their dynamic is really what helped me get through some parts of the movie that were not as good as others.
Yeah.
So
I think
yeah,
it's just so egregious to me that they didn't give Luigi a mustache. Like, I mean,
yeah,
Hoskins actually looks like Mario. I mean, he doesn't. I mean, it's not. it's not. It's not like perfect, but you look at him and like if somebody tells you Mario, and you're like, that makes sense. When you tell me that Luigi, no, that John Leguizamo is Luigi, that really gets me to scratch my head because there's literally nothing about him that resembles Luigi.
that's fair. I sort of appreciate the different approach with the character of Luigi, but there are complaints I have about it as
Okay.
well. So yeah, I'll say both sides of that I agree with.
Mhm.
Um, but
Again, it's
what
uneven.
else?
Yeah.
What else about this movie did you enjoy? Because I have a feeling your list is not very long.
So for number two here, I put dot dot dot. No,
Oh no!
no. Um, hey, okay, I do have
Oh shit!
again, this is another mixed bag thing, but the production design is ambitious with a lowercase a. It felt like they were kind of looking to
Oh shit!
movies that came before, like a lot of Blade Runner, a lot
Yeah.
of Mad Max. So it's not wholly original. And look, we'll talk about how nothing like the game this movie is in
Oh
the
yeah.
ugly. We're just going to devote that entire section to that because it's so overwhelming. It's basically this movie's legacy. But no, it's not original, but it is detailed. Work was put into it, and sometimes I could admire some of the creativity or some of the ideas that were put on screen. Um, it's not a coherent world to me at all. Like those police cars that drive around really do look like something from Mad Max, and other things about this feel like not a kids movie but kitschy. Other than the strip club scene where apparently they hired real strippers, so it's hard to praise the production design wholly, like wholeheartedly, but I feel like it is where the most effort and creativity was actually put into it, into the movie.
I'm gonna agree with what you just ended on there, and I wanna talk about this more, but I feel like my feelings on this would better. It would be better if I saved it till we talk how we talked about people feel about this movie
Okay.
to kind of dive more into that. But I'm gonna
Okay.
agree with what you said there, and I'm gonna introduce some controversy. I'm gonna inject some controversy into
Of
this
course you
section
are.
if I could, because that's what I do. Um, so I'm gonna group these three characters in together. They don't belong together, but I'm gonna include them because I feel about the same about them. The character of Daisy and the character of Iggy and Spike are two dim-witted morons,
Mhm.
and our damsel, if
A
you will.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yes, man. You know what's funny? Like, I just completely was like, okay, I had seen this movie before, and I was like, okay, I don't really remember how I feel about it. I don't remember particularly loving it, but I'm gonna go into this, and I'm just gonna follow Gabe from Flopbuster's advice. I'm just gonna, or Gabe from the headliner in this case. I'm gonna follow his advice, and I'm just gonna turn my brain to a part where I'm all here for fun. I'm gonna get a drink and I'm just gonna have a blast. And dude, the characters of Iggy and Spike, I was having a blast with. I love the part where they are made to be intelligent and they're still fucking stupid. It's hilarious to me. Some of the things they say throughout the movie is very funny. Their slapstick nature I really enjoyed throughout the movie. It's a little over the top and childish at times, but I enjoyed it enough. And the character of Daisy, if her name wasn't Daisy, I mean, I think nobody would really have a problem with her. She's kind of just there, and
Yeah, I
she's
mean,
got
she
some
wouldn't
things
make an
about her.
impression though if her
No,
name was
she
Daisy.
doesn't necessarily make an impression fully either, but I think I just expected to hate it so much that I threw it in this good section because I was like, you know what? I didn't. I don't want the movie without
Let's
her in it, even
let's
though.
call this the good slash not bad section, because there's a couple of things that I watched this and I thought this doesn't deserve the ire of fans, and this was fine, and this was okay. Like, okay, if you're going to turn Super Mario Brothers into this steampunk, industrial, kind of sleazy universe, giving them those kind of rocket boots
Oh yeah,
was like clever and actually pretty fun idea to
yeah,
explain how they're hopping around. They actually don't. They jump once or twice in this movie, which kind of shocked me. But when they first do, it's kind of like a big moment. It's kind of like
yeah,
I'm Batman. You know, they
yeah,
they
kind of, yeah,
they jump through. And by the way, I bet you the success of Tim Burton's Batman was a huge part in the calculation of the production team's mind when they made this,
oh
because
yeah,
right, Batman was something that, in people's minds it was a very childish property, and then these filmmakers turned into this dark and gothic and brooding movie with some really crazy ambitious production design, and I feel like they were trying to do that with Super Mario Brothers. Didn't work exactly. um, because the people who made this are, they're not exactly Tim Burton, but watching this in the context of Tim Burton's Batman actually makes this movie make a lot more sense.
it makes it make a lot more sense, and you start to see those parallels when you, and even like some of the sets are sort of familiar in that way. You know, it's like it's almost like they got the same fucking people to
Yeah,
build the sets. You know what I mean? Like that,
yeah.
you can see how those things would be similar to each other. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
And I do want to say that the idea of this other dimension, that these people evolved from dinosaurs, whereas we evolved from apes.
Yeah.
Clever idea, clever starting point. I can see how that would be kind of like a cool pitch, for a more adult Super Mario Brothers movie. Also, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie came out a year before, I think. And I don't know if that had any influence on this, but that was another project where it went from being a kind of goofy children's property from the show to being a more serious take. I mean, it's not uber serious. It doesn't take itself too seriously, which is one of the reasons why that first TMNT movie works pretty well. Um, in this movie, I can't. I we'll save this more for the bad, but the problem is, if they had committed to the bit more, I think I would have an easier time defending it. But I call it more adult, but there is some really juvenile humor, and I'm sorry, but the bumbling duo that you mentioned,
I
it
know I'm
did
in the
not work
minority
for
with
me.
them. Yeah, I know I'm in the minority with them.
Yeah, but it's all about context, because I can't. This movie doesn't have a groove to it, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead to the bad. I'm trying to scrounge up any positive energy I have for the
Just
movie.
desperately grabbing
Okay,
for
well,
good
you tell me. I
shit.
mean, do you have any other like really big positives for the movie?
I do. I do. And he's right
Okay.
behind you.
Oh, Dennis Hopper.
Fucking
Uh,
Dennis Hopper is one of my favorite parts of this fucking movie. He is having so much fun with this. I love that he's having so much fun with this. Let me tell you what the scenes, there's two scenes in particular that just make me absolutely love him. There's technically three, but I want to talk about two because they're connected with each other. Um, well, no, you know what? I'll give you the through line, right? So we see him at some point just ordering a pizza out of nowhere. He's just ordering a
yeah.
pizza. Then he sends his battle. He gets all of his soldiers ready for battle, right? He gives the order to prepare for battle. And when he does so, he asks himself, "Where's my pizza?" We don't know. We don't know where his pizza is. Uh,
It's a mystery. Where's his
then
pizza?
then we get down to the street level, and Mario and Luigi have started to thwart his plans. And as they have, you hear over the walkie-talkie somebody tell him, "Sir, your pizza's here," and he screams, "Not now." Dude, I laughed so fucking hard when that happened. I did not see that coming. I did not see the big running joke of the movie being the fact that he ordered a pizza. And the fact that they were bold enough to make that the running joke was just absolutely hilarious to me. But then you have so many other scenes with him where he's just having so much fun, where he's like he's in like that hanging thing and he's trying to hit Mario with like the flame gun, and he's interrogating them at one point pretending to be some lawyer. He's just having a fucking blast, and I was having a blast with him. I love
Okay.
Dennis Hopper in this.
I love Dennis Hopper. I love him. I actually think he's a very underrated character in the history of American
Oh
cinema.
yeah.
He's made a lot of significant contributions. He's like a Nick Cage guy where it's very easy to joke about how over the top he was, um, both on screen and in his personal life.
Yeah.
But the dude was actually really serious talent,
Oh
both
yeah.
as an actor and as a director. That being said, he made me so uncomfortable in this
Oh
movie.
no.
He not that there weren't moments where he again in a different movie, I think I could laugh at some of those jokes. Oh, sorry, phone ring. No,
That's all right.
like I could imagine this working in a different movie. But look, I'll just say it. There's a scene where he very strongly hints that he is going to rape Daisy.
God.
And I'm
Oh
imagining
God.
like the 8 year olds in the audience, like looking to their parents and asking them to explain what the hell uh, King Koopa is talking about. So he brings the same energy here that he did for like Blue Velvet. Um,
A little bit of TCM2. A little bit of
a
TCM2
little
with like
bit.
the psychotic, like so especially towards the end, he really starts to
Yeah,
channel TCM2.
sure. I think I know Speed was after this, so I don't know where this fits in with his career because he went from being like a psychopath to a more kind of like mainstream Hollywood villain.
Yeah.
Also in Waterworld, this is like right between that. It's not even a joke.
It was just really funny to hear just very quickly also in Waterworld. Oh
Um,
God. Waterworld is the butt of a joke, so I love laughing every time I hear
wow.
Waterworld.
Okay, knowing some of the movies that you defend and then like dismissing
Shitting
Waterworld.
on Waterworld?
Okay. All right. Well, I know what my next pick is.
Oh fuck.
You
Damn
brought this
it.
on yourself, buddy.
Damn
No.
it. All right, whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Dennis Hopper. He creeped me the fuck out, but he's also, oh, yeah, it's cool that he's in this. I mean, I'm glad it's him and not some asshole who just went in for a paycheck.
Oh yeah, I mean it was very clear from the time he showed up on screen that he was just gonna make the fucking most of this, and I just appreciate about everything that he does. He takes that attitude with. He's just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm here. Let's do this. And like you said, like a Nick Cage, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you give him. He's just gonna fucking have a blast with it and do his best. And I think he did. So I was there along the ride with him. Loved him in this. Had a great time with it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm just going to say that his performance just didn't. Nothing in this movie
Yeah.
matches, but his stood out as very dark and sinister. And I really wondered how he was directed. If he was asked to play up his Dennis Hopperness, or if he just didn't take any other kind of direction. Because I'd be really curious to know that. Um, that being said, Dennis Hopper did say that the only reason he did this movie was so he could buy his kid a pair of nice shoes. And when his kid learned that, he said, "Dad, I don't need shoes that bad." So that shows you how the Super Mario Brothers movie is talked about in the Hopper household.
Oh, well, it's not talked about too much nicer in the Hoskins household if you've ever heard his words about being in
I
this
literally
movie.
don't know anybody who had a good time making this movie, and I'm sure everybody in the main cast wants to scrub this from their resume. I actually, if I ever meet John Leguizamo, I really just want to ask him about this movie.
Well, even with that, man, like um, one of the directors, Annabelle Jankel, she ended up directing a movie that's like pretty highly rated on Letterboxd called "Tell It to the Bees" that came out in 2018. So she directed a movie that's like pretty well known and loved, and then she also made this. Now the other guy, not so much, but this was directed by a team, which I think they were husband and wife at the time.
They
And
were.
Bob Hoskins would go on to say that their arrogance was confused for talent. and they were
Yeah,
hired to do this role, which is
great
pretty,
quote.
yeah,
Great
pretty
quote.
great quote. But we'll see if that factors into our final verdict. But for now, that's all the good that I had. I'm curious if, well, that's all the good I wanted to talk about here.
Mhm.
Uh, wink, wink. But anything else you wanted to bring up before we move to the bad slash ugly?
No, my good section is exhausted. It has been stretched as thin as possible. So, all right, let's move
Here we
on
go.
to a place where I have a lot of notes. The bad section.
We'll be discussing, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been here before, since we did our some changes to our structure, we talk about the good and then we talk about the bad and the ugly. And we're going to be talking about the bad and the ugly right now, things we didn't like and things that the audience or you people maybe listening
Yeah,
to this don't
yeah,
like. So I see your excitement in talking about this section. I'd like to hear from you and see what's the first thing you want to bring up here because I have a feeling you have a lot to say.
yeah. Okay, let me just get this off my chest. This movie is gross as fuck. This movie is
That's a
disgusting.
negative.
That is, for a Super Mario Brothers movie, a
Oh
pretty
shit.
big negative. And it's not okay. Maybe I need to explain myself because I do have a tolerance for what other people describe as gross stuff, like gore. I can watch the Saw movies.
Yeah,
I can even tolerate some mean spirited energy depending on who it's directed to. Like if you torture a business person in a movie, like do whatever you want to them. I don't care. That
you
being said,
cynic.
that being said, no man, like the fungus. They like they chose to make fungus like a character in this movie.
They did.
Every frame has some kind of fungi, like almost like surrounding our characters, and it's already like the environment is ugly enough. Again, it's kind of like this bizarre mix of steampunk and industrial, like urban decay. So to layer that with like this really gross, I mean, this is a part where I can admire the special effects team. They did a good job. It's like the stuff from Aliens, like that the xenomorphs
Hmm.
cocoon their victims in. But at the same time, Bob Hoskins is cracking wise, and John Leguizamo is, hopping around on his little hoppy boots, and the energies mixed in the worst way possible. That stuff feels so dumb to me. All the humor and this stuff to me feels so gross. Like I honestly felt like this was a very unpleasant movie to sit through,
Oh.
which is quite a charge. It's quite a thing to say, and I wonder if you have a counter argument to that accusation.
Um, I mean, there's parts of it, truthfully, that are gross. The part that really like weirded me out, because I was pretty fine with like the fungus throughout the movie. I thought it was a part of the world that they were building, so like I was cool with it. But then they have this scene where very specifically we learn, and it's alluded to throughout the film, but we learn that it's Daisy's father, who
Hmm.
was turned into this fungus through de-evolution.
Who turns
And
out to be Lance Henriksen? Spoiler.
which that's why I was gonna say it's kind of funny that you mentioned that it's like aliens because not only was he an Alien versus Predator, which we covered on the show, but also Alien 3 and Aliens. But that's the part that started bugging me was that, that's the one part in the movie where I was just like, all right, that is a little nasty when when he's like he like sticks. I guess what's supposed to be his head out of this like cocoon
He
fungus
looks like
thing.
a ball sack, like
It kind well,
a moldy ball
yeah.
sack.
Oh God. Oh, that's an image I didn't want.
Well,
Oh
that's the
man.
image the movie gave you, or at least
It
it
kind
gave
of
to me.
is, yeah.
Ugh.
It's yeah, I'll say that like that part was I that's the one part that I could get was like kind of gross. It didn't bug me. Truthfully, it didn't take me out of the experience. I was just kind of like, "Ugh, that's kind of gross." But honestly, the rest of the fungus stuff I thought was used quite well throughout the movie. It was a plot device that they introduced and I was surprised they actually took that route with it. It's like trying to help them defeat King Koopa, which I thought was pretty good utilization if you're going to do something like that. So,
You
uh,
shouldn't do something like that.
well,
Fungus shouldn't be your Deus ex machina. you know?
It's a person who is de-evolved. Hey, he has thoughts and feelings still. But no, in all seriousness, like it is. I'm not going to dispute that people would find this gross, but I'm going to dispute that it bothered me because it didn't. I didn't have a problem with it, truthfully. Um, Although I will say what I did have a problem with was the fucking score. Um, Dude, this score was awful. There were moments that weren't too bad, that your generic early 90s action adventure score, but every time that they were trying to be like silly and goofy at the beginning of the movie was like some of the worst of that music I had ever
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
And it just was so atrocious, and it took me out of the film a few times throughout. Some would say a minor complaint,
Mhm.
but it really bothered me.
No, I mean, a score is a huge thing. It can either elevate a movie or it can really hurt it. I rarely encounter a case where the score actively hurts a movie because, professional composers are very competent people, and they they tend to work more in isolation from the rest of the crew. So even a chaotic production, usually a composer is kind of insulated from that, and is in the environment to do their work properly and without intrusion. So it's very rare that you get a bad score. I'm not sure how I felt about the score, other than I thought it was hilarious that they play the Super Mario Brothers theme once. Not a cinematic rendition, literally the 8-bit theme over the opening credits. And that's right before you see what this dinosaur egg cracking and giving birth to a human being, and you're like, that's not Super Mario Brothers at all. Uh, so that is awkward. I just don't even remember the score well enough, unfortunately, to comment on it. Um,
That's fair.
yeah, but what I do remember well enough is how awkward the action sequences are. I mean,
Hmm.
how, but oh, let me actually say one thing that I forgot to mention as a positive. I actually think the design of the Goombas is pretty funny.
You do like the Goombas.
I actually
Okay.
do. Maybe I
You
should have
like the
saved that for the
changes to
ugly.
the Goombas.
I should have saved that for the ugly section because I know that's contentious. But
Bring it up again. Bring it up again. Well,
sure. But as we're talking about the action scenes, it is kind of a problem because I'm not scared for Mario and Luigi because of how silly the Goombas are.
yeah.
That being said, all the action scenes had to be was wacky and funny and zany, which again, they're driving around in this Mad Max car, doing uh, some bumper cars on the speedway, and sparks are flying everywhere, and it's like not whimsical at all. The most whimsical that you get is they accidentally drive onto another car, and Luigi's like, "Oh, I hope this driver knows where we're going." Just one of the cringier one-liners to me in the movie. Um, but then like all of the action again, it's like them fighting fungus and fighting Dennis Hopper, and who is really bringing like a very sinister energy to this movie. And I was worried for everybody who shared the screen with him because I just didn't know if Dennis would snap.
Like the cameras still keep rolling, but it's just Dennis actually
Yeah,
snapping.
yeah. So and like the rest of the movie, I mean, the direction of these action sequences, I mean, it's incoherent. I could barely tell what was going on. um the one action sequence I think I got a kick out of was them sliding down the pipe.
That was a cool scene.
That was a cool scene. I wish it was Mario and Luigi, not Mario and these random people.
You mean the
um
hookers?
okay.
Oh no, I will say there's one really funny line that leads to their discovery. So the idea is that Iggy and Spike have been abducting random women in New York City because they don't know what Daisy looks like. They just keep
Right.
picking people up, and one of them happens to be Mario's girlfriend, Daniela, and he does not know that she's there until Daisy asks, "Where's Daniela?" And he says, "Daniela, my Daniela's here." And then he literally lets the line go, which popped me huge. He says, "I promised her I'd take her to WrestleMania." I was
Yeah, I was
like,
thinking about you as you said that.
yeah. I was like, there we go. But that and the scene in the tunnel are the only two reasons that I was like, okay, their existence is justified enough for me. But they were just kind of there.
Mhm.
They were props. Not in a bad way. I don't think it's like a misogynistic, like, oh, women are props kind of way. They were just like prop characters. They didn't need to
No,
be there, but they were fine.
not to go all Anita Sarkeesian here, but I mean, Super Mario Brothers is just, I mean, it's the most basic damsel in distress
Yeah,
structure that you could have.
right.
And the movie, I think is aware of that. I think they wanted to make Daisy seem like a more independent, autonomous character, but her function is still to get rescued.
Yeah, I think they did a better job than the games did, even now than the games
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah,
I think they just, I think she's a character that has thoughts and feelings and emotions other than I'm scared because I've been kidnapped
yeah.
and
I mean, well, she's the only one who has a character arc,
yes.
and maybe I'm asking
Well,
too much.
Luigi kind of does.
Maybe I'm asking too much of this movie, but Mario and Luigi are not characters to me. They are, they're just avatars moving through this crazy world, that deliver jokes and quips. Um, but they're not characters. They have no semblance of character arcs, especially not Mario. Like they have no development. The only thing we know is that Mario basically brought up Luigi. Um,
And their last name is Mario.
yeah, their last name is Mario.
No, they definitely did that as a joke. Like, because everybody talks about the fact that, like, why is his name Mario, but it's called the Mario Brothers? That infers that their last name is also Mario. That was
Yeah,
like a running joke at the time when the games came out.
sure.
So I like that they put it in this movie.
No, I mean that's like not even a real complaint of mine. It is just sad that I feel like that is the most development we get for
It
their
is kind of, yeah.
relationship. Um,
Mario, and Luigi Mario.
yeah, which hey, that's funny. But I don't know. I mean, you said that you think Luigi has a character arc. Can you tell me what his arc was?
It felt like he, throughout the film, more than anybody, he sort of, I guess the best way to say it would be he sort of learned the value of, how can I put this? uh, I feel like more so maturity than anything. The value of maturing and understanding other things. You don't necessarily have to. Well, first of all, he starts the movie like really into the unknown, right? Like he watches that TV show about like people being abducted, and he's really interested in that sort of thing. And then he gets himself into that world, and he gets
Mhm.
really interested in somebody. And throughout the film, his immaturity and his inability to control himself leads them into a lot of trouble. In fact, one of those times, Mario has to be saved by the fungus in order not to die because he's about to fall to his death. Because Luigi's too quick to say, "No, I'm floating. Look, I'm floating," and then he's on a hook. So his immaturity leads them into the situation that they're in, and then finally, in the end, he's sort of like about to throw like a little childish tantrum because Daisy's not going to come with. But Mario kind of gives him that last little lesson in the movie where he's like, no, I mean, this is her place. She's got to find her place.
Yeah.
We
So
know ours
basically,
now.
Luigi's character arc went from being wanting to fix Daisy's pipes, and her pipes didn't need fixing. Um,
He learned how to mature as a character throughout the film. Maybe he doesn't need to get into all these crazy things anymore
Maybe he
because
doesn't need
he
to get
just
into
gets
her
him into
pants.
trouble.
Maybe he just needs to go
I
back to
think he
being.
still wants to do that, to be
Well, of
honest with
course
you.
he
I don't
still
know that he
wants
learned
to,
anything
but
there.
no. I mean, but he learns he can't be with her because she has a kingdom to run. Now, I'm surprised that Luigi and Mario didn't even consider staying in that universe, like because I don't know what their home life is like. It didn't seem like they were happy. It didn't seem like they're in that universe. They would have had a real purpose and a real place. And, to these people, they're heroes. So the fact that they never even consider staying there to me is like, wouldn't anybody have that thought at least when they have talked about it?
Well, from what I gathered from the end of the movie, it seems like the city now appreciates them
Oh,
because
right.
remember they kind of pulled that world in, and then Mario and Luigi saved the day. So both universes now think that they're heroes. But I think the idea was they can continue to live in their world unless they're needed, and then they go into the crazy world, and because Daisy comes and gets him at the end of the movie and says, "We got another
for
one."
for a sequel that never happened.
It didn't happen. No,
Yeah,
we didn't get that sequel. Legacy sequel. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get a legacy sequel to the Super Mario Brothers.
even
Who
though the
needs
Bob
who?
Hoskins is dead.
Who needs yes? Who needs Chris Pratt sounding like Tina Belcher?
Oh, God.
Not Tina Belcher. Sorry, Linda Belcher. We need. Let's just do what they did with in Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters movie. Just do like a face replacement. Or Halloween did it too with Donald Pleasance. Do what you need to do. Just don't give me Chris Pratt as Mario. Anyways, no, I'm fucking around. I don't have any problems with that movie. I'm actually quite excited to see it. But no,
I
I
thought it looked
mean,
fine, honestly.
no, yeah, and the only complaint that I have so far is that somebody shared something online where they showed just a picture of Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers over the audio of Chris Pratt talking like Mario, and now I can't unhear that.
Mhm.
It's just that's what it is. But no, like while we're discussing this movie, there are some other issues that I have with it, but it's more so in the line of what people have problems with, of what
Yeah.
the audience sort of has an issue with. So, is there anything else that you maybe didn't hear the audience talk about as much that you wanted to get into before we kind of? I mean, I know that this section's kind of all
Yeah.
together. We throw it all
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No, I do have one final negative, and it's a big one. This
oh,
movie predicted 9/11.
oh fuck.
This movie has a shot
I
where
will say that is pretty fucking insane. I literally so like obviously hindsight's 2020 there, but I just covered my mouth for like a good I don't know 20 seconds, and I just kept going, oh no, oh no.
oh yes.
There's no possible way they could have known. So I'm like, we can't give them shit for that. But like,
No, I'm not giving them real shit for that.
no,
It
I
just
know that's pretty
adding
fucking
to the
insane.
anxiety I was already
Yeah.
feeling from watching this movie.
I can imagine if you're already uncomfortable, that's not gonna help. That's not
Like
gonna
this is
help
a
at all.
dangerous fucking movie.
Oh shit.
Where were the directors on 9/11? I want to know.
Oh fuck. Oh.
Yeah, no, but I'm happy to move on to the ugly section because we got so much to talk about.
Yeah, and I want to get us started light, just talking about some of the things that are more light because we have something very glaring to discuss here. And I want to save that till the end because I think that's going to be the most interesting conversation. But huge issue that people have with this movie is the acting. People do not like any of the acting in this movie. I've heard people praise Hoskins. Everybody else, though, doesn't get a pass from the general audience. And I'm sort of curious if you fall into that category. Do you think the acting is as atrocious as people say?
I mean, I feel like we've touched on all the major players here. We talked about Leguizamo,
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper, and I think everybody other than Bob Hoskins is a victim of bad direction, bad writing. These are all good actors. I'm not super familiar with Samantha Mathis's work. I primarily know her as she was very close to River Phoenix. She was with him when he died, um, and they had acted together. But I'm not familiar with her as a performer.
Mhm.
Just going off this, she seemed fine. I mean, obviously, it's the lack of loyalty to the game that pisses people off about Daisy's character here.
Yes.
Um, I think Leguizamo is the weak link to me, just in terms of I was just not buying what he was selling. And Dennis Hopper scared me, just like he's scared me in Blue Velvet.
Scary.
I kept expecting him to bring up, like start sniffing from that from that from that tank,
Oh yeah.
or to order a can of Pabst Blue Ribbon. Like his energy from Blue Velvet just did not change at
Oh
all,
god.
which I mean it is a complaint and it isn't, because again that's more entertaining than what the role could have been. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, just I'm not going to passionately defend the cast other than Hoskins, who again he was the bright spot for me.
Yeah, I truthfully didn't have an issue with any of the actors. I was actually kind of surprised to learn that Fisher Stevens, who played Iggy in this movie, would go on to do like a lot of work with Wes Anderson. Like, he's in the Grand Budapest Hotel. He's in the
Yeah,
French
yeah.
Dispatch. He's in the Isle of Dogs. So like I mean, he's got a pretty prolific
Oh,
career.
and the guy
Um,
acting opposite of him, I can't remember that actor's name, but he's a great character actor.
yeah,
He,
Richard Edson,
yeah, he was in, I mean, Do the Right Thing.
Ferris Bueller.
In this movie, he kind of did the wrong thing, but
Well,
no, he did.
no, he did the right thing in the end. He
No,
was,
I was saying as an actor, he picked the
oh,
wrong
he
movie.
did the wrong thing by doing the movie. I
Yeah.
got it. I got it.
Um, yeah. So I mean, again, like that's the weird thing. Like there was a time when like Hollywood was doing these adaptations or sequels, they were getting doing these asinine projects and getting major talent attached. So you would see a movie of the quality of an Uwe Boll film, but see like George Clooney or John
Dude,
Leguizamo.
I don't know that it's fair to say quality of an Uwe Boll film because that's like a whole nother level of fucking awful. Like,
Yeah,
like I am not a big fan of Batman and Robin. If I think at this point with how long we've been doing this show, I could have fun with it and maybe defend it if I
yeah.
had to. But like I would watch that movie on repeat for 2 fucking years before I would watch House of the Dead again.
Well, don't you think part of that might be because of the star power? I mean,
Well, see, you can say that, but then Uwe Boll made In the Name of the King, which had Jason Statham, who I like, and
I
had
like
several.
him, but he can't carry a movie like George Clooney can.
No, no, he can't. But at the same time, George Clooney also very much bothers me as Batman, and I can get around that to have a good time with the movie if I wanted
Oh,
to. There's
really?
nothing
Okay.
I could get around to appreciate an Uwe Boll film,
See,
and
I'm actually
I
one of the
hope he threatens
people.
to fight me
I,
for
I'm one
that.
of the people that think that George Clooney could have been a good Batman. In fact, I don't even think he's like that bad of a Batman in Batman and Robin.
Ah,
Um,
so you'd say he's not that bad.
don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
Dude, it's okay. We have some people that we are welcoming onto the show at some point in time that may or may not be picking this movie, Batman and
Yeah.
Robin. So we're gonna find out if that
All right.
happens or not.
But
But
okay, back to today's subject, the Super
yes,
Mario Brothers movie. I was gonna say the Batman and Robin of video game movies, but no, that would be Mortal Kombat Annihilation, I think.
yeah, yeah, I'd say so. I was surprised to learn through my research that the rating for Super Mario Brothers is so close to that of Annihilation on uh, Letterboxd.
People hate this movie. People really hate this movie. And
I've
the big
learned that very
reason,
much.
yeah, and the big reason it is more than any of the things we've already talked about.
Time for the main event, then, isn't
Right.
it?
Yeah. No, we have to
Oh
talk
boy.
about how this movie, the list of things that this movie has in common with the game is shorter than the list of things that it does not.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you talked about some inconsistencies with Mortal Kombat and
Yeah.
this and that. No, nothing, no adaptation I can think of compares to this movie. Um, Now, if I can do a brief little history lesson, there was a time on network television that they would adapt comic books, like the Incredible Hulk. They did
Oh yeah.
Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, and those, some shows were better than others, but they all had this in common that they went out of their way to not be loyal to the source material, to not adapt
Right.
the source material. They would take Peter Parker and put him with a cast of characters and villains that, I mean, they couldn't even be bothered to put in like Mary Jane. And the same goes for like the Incredible Hulk. They couldn't even name him Bruce Banner. They named him David Banner. Like they went out of their way to not be loyal to the material. And that's what this reminded me of. They went out of their way to just not to troll the audience, but I guess just to distance themselves from the video game and make themselves feel like they were doing something more adult, right? Something a bit more credible as a film.
Credible is definitely the word I'd go for more so here.
Yeah.
Like at a time where video games are very much like they're in pop culture and such, but they're not like they are now. Where
Yeah,
like if you see like a like people are calling for video game movies like every time a new game comes out, whereas like then nobody was really
I
asking
mean,
for it.
this is just like a year or two after Roger Ebert wrote an entire article claiming that video games would never be art.
Yeah.
Which, I love Roger Ebert, but man, did he get that wrong.
Oh, he's
Um,
gotten a few things wrong over
I
the
know he's
years.
gotten a few things wrong, but that is the take that I think that's his most controversial take, and that is the one that still upsets people the most
Oh yeah.
today, for sure. And I totally understand why. Then again, this movie did not help the case that video games could be art. So I don't know. I mean, where do we even start with this? What do you start with?
Well, I think there's a few different ways that we have to look at it, and there's some questions that we have to ask ourselves along the way. One of which is how transferable is the Mario Brothers game to film?
Mhm.
And this is a question that I do wish audience members would ask themselves more, but that doesn't excuse the filmmakers for what they did. Let's get this out of the way. They didn't just avoid the source material; they had a hatred for the source material. They hated the fact that they were making a video game movie. They wanted nothing to do with that. But there were, like you said, there were things that they threw in there. But I guess I'm curious about this: is did you play a lot of the early Mario Brothers games, like Super Mario Brothers 1 through 3?
I've played the first one, a number of times. I've played Mario a number of times in my life. I'm definitely more familiar with the N64 stuff. I was a huge fan of Super Mario Galaxy. I think that game is pretty underrated in the Mario canon. But I mean, there are basics,
Yeah.
that everybody knew by the time they were making this movie. Mario is a plumber that has to go save a princess from an evil lizard king. Um, that they kind of follow in the most austere way. They
They
come at it from.
distance it's like they told the story with a barrier around it, like
Yeah,
it.
it's like they approached it from the complete opposite angle,
Right.
whereas that game was like colorful about it and it was fun. This movie, um uh no, this movie is like, okay, no, he's not going to be a big lizard turtle thing, Bowser. He's going to be Dennis Hopper with a haircut that I could only describe as like Dennis Rodman-esque, you
That's a
know?
pretty decent comparison, yeah.
Yeah. And
White guy
technically,
Dennis Rodman.
Daisy is a princess. At no point does she look like a princess. And she's not been a princess. She learns that she is heir to a kingdom.
Yeah,
So yeah, they took the basic elements and went at it from a completely different way.
they did. And truthfully, like that's the thing. When I look at the game, and by the way, Super Mario Brothers 2 is one of my favorite video games ever. Uh, I absolutely love that game. I could play it all the time. It's extremely hard for me for some reason. I've beaten the other two games, but can't beat Super Mario Brothers 2. Never have. Don't think I ever will. But I love the games. But even I have to admit that some of the stuff in the games is just very tough to bring to film. That being said, there are some basic things that I think that they could have gotten right. I want to shit on them for not making Bowser an actual lizard. um, because I think movies around that time kind of showed like almost like Ninja Turtles, that you could make like a pretty decent costume for a monster and make it look cool. They're not monsters, but like the mouth moves and it's very animated and you're able to portray emotions and all that stuff. But I'm not gonna go too far with that. I do wish there was a little bit less.
Contempt for the source material.
Well, I definitely wish that. That's actually a problem that I have with the changes that they made is that it didn't come from a place of like, okay, let's just make this like as grand as we
Uh,
can for a film, and let's, if they're going to be original, it comes from a good place. Some of it came from a bad place, if not most of it. But I wish that, truthfully, like I'm fine with the distance that they took for most of the characters, except for, and this is gonna sound silly to some people, but except for Daisy. I like the character overall for what it is in the film, but when you're taking it into the context of the games, I would have rather her like known she's a princess and like gone into the real world to get some help because she knows something that we don't about Mario and Luigi, other than her just stumbling upon them and
Mhm.
having a weird crystal around her neck. And then the only thing that this was missing when she found out that she was a princess is fucking yogurt from Spaceballs coming out of a fortune cookie and telling her, because that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like
Uh-huh.
just, you know, in Spaceballs it's funny because it's a comedy movie and it's supposed to be funny when he finds out that he's a prince, but in this it's not supposed to be funny when she finds that out. There's a lot of this movie that is supposed to be funny, and they succeed in some of those areas,
But no,
but this is
they're supposed
not.
to be dramatic. I think
It
we are
is,
supposed to take her
yes.
character very serious.
Exactly. And so those
Um,
changes, like, you know, the biggest issue that I had was where we were introduced to her as a baby, where her mother is like, it's like a very, to me, that's the most bizarre scene of the fucking movie. I mean,
uh,
her mother shows up and it's like very like slow mo, flash frame, fucking
yeah,
running away,
yeah.
steampunk look, and then she just gets fucking murdered. You're just like, okay, that happened.
No, it's fucked up. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Spaceballs because I think what I'm trying to articulate here is that, like, hey, this movie should have been funny. Um, it should have had a sense of humor about itself, and
You
you
didn't
know
think it had any sense of humor about itself?
that's what I'm getting at. So yes, I mean there is some banter, and Dennis Hopper gets a few jokes like the pizza thing,
Yeah.
but the tone of the movie is not funny. The visual style of the movie does not lend itself to humor at all. Like quite the opposite. The story's not funny. It's kind of it's sinister. It has weird themes about like bodily autonomy and um it's like really hard to articulate because I've never encountered this in any other movie since. But compare that to Spaceballs, which is a parody, but it is layered with humor. Like the character designs, the cinematography, it's colorful, it's bright. You know, the casting, they get Rick Moranis to play the bad guy, not Dennis Hopper, because when you get Dennis Hopper to play the bad guy, he will ultimately come out as very very intimidating, even if you give him some jokes because that's the type of energy he has.
Right.
So no, this movie is not funny. It has comedic elements, but it is not a comedy at the end of the day, which is a very misguided thing to me for a movie, for a story about an Italian plumber going into another universe.
They definitely took the more action adventure approach. I was laughing through much of the movie. Just I don't know if it's just the mood I was in watching it this time around.
Sounds like
Um,
you were in a very good mood.
oh, I was a fantastic mood, and that doesn't happen a lot. So that I took that as best as I could, and you know just had a great time with it. And I did think it was funny, but that doesn't excuse some of the things that they did,
Mhm.
and that's where I want to kind of get into the changes to the overall story and the world
Yeah,
of Mario, and I want to get your opinion on that,
yeah.
and see kind of where you land on like the world that they built in this movie. Do you like it at all? Do you think any of it should have been implemented into any games in the future, or is it just sort of all nothing?
You know what this reminded me of more than anything was that Judge Dredd movie with Sylvester
I'm
Stallone.
so glad you brought that up because I wanted to bring that up earlier, but I knew that that came out later than
That
this.
did come out
So
later, but that's not a good harbinger, frankly, of things to come. Um, when I noticed that about this movie, look, they took an experimental route, and as such, they kind of defy our ability to even like talk about this, whether it's a good or a bad change. Like it's just a change. You deal with it or you don't. Um, it just sapped a lot of fun out of the movie for me. How ugly like every aspect of this society was. Um, you know, this movie, it could have been like a Wizard of Oz experience. That's another movie where a regular person goes to another world, and the Wizard of Oz, like, don't get me wrong, it actually kind of has some scary ideas in it,
yeah,
right?
it's
Um,
very like You know, like those folklores that like over time became more child friendly, but like when
Right.
you look back at the original, it's like somewhere in the
Fuck
middle of that.
yeah, it's gnarly. And I think part of the really fascinating thing about the Wizard of Oz is that it does have that range, that spectrum where it is very whimsical. It is a really fun adventure, but it does give you like a lot of scary, intense moments.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, it's like they reverse engineered it to be like, okay, this is going to be a really oppressive movie that is lacking in color and humor, other than some brief, like they'll pause for that to throw in some Super Mario banter, right? So it's like the complete opposite of the Wizard of Oz in that way, and I doubt that's what they intended. I mean, that's surely not what Nintendo thought they were going to do. I mean, they wanted something maybe experimental, but not something that kind of like mocked their brand. I don't know. What do you think about that?
You know, it's funny, like when I think about the changes to the world, like part of me would have wanted to, and I guess we're gonna see how this turns out with the new Mario Brothers film that's gonna be coming out later this year. Which again, I will be watching, and I'll be excited to see how that turns out. But it's funny, like it makes
Mhm.
you think a couple of things. Like what was going through their head where they didn't think they could implement a lot of that colorful nature of the game, and what was would it have been at the time the right move to make?
I
Since I
think so.
can't answer either of those questions, I'm gonna say this: uh, I don't absolutely love everything that they did, but overall, like dude, I kind of dig the world that they built in this. You know, like it's dark, it's dingy, it's something that in like the Mario world we've never seen before. And there's things that they change in this that I really would have liked to have seen in a Mario game at some point. First off, the in people shit on this online all the time, so I'm ready to get shit on for this. But the outfits I thought could have been put into a Mario game at some point. You know, their final little plumber outfits that they had towards the end, where they finally gave him the red and green.
That was like the only moment of fan service in this movie.
And people don't like it generally. They don't like those costumes, but I thought they were really
I
cool.
thought they were fine. I was just grateful that some semblance of even the aesthetic of the game was being introduced, like an
Yeah,
hour in.
but like that's not even like the end of it. Like I would have loved to have seen like some sort of version of that ice tunnel. I would have loved to have seen this like crazy Koopa city that Mario is out of his element in the video games. And I would have fucking loved if they would have one game that actually tries to one like Mario type game that tries to implement his plumber tools. Why have we not gotten that in the proper way?
Because all he needs to do is jump on things, man.
I get that, but like Mario's got more depth now. I just want to see something. Like you know what's funny is like shortly after I watched this movie, I had a dream, and in the dream, it was sort of like some of my dreams are just like movies or games that I'm
Mhm.
playing or something like that. Like they're not all just me experiencing things, but I had a dream that there was a game about this movie, and it was like you know the series. Like, there was a Batman Forever game that was very much like the Mortal Kombat digitized
Yeah,
graphics of
yeah.
the '90s. It was that, but with this movie, and it was so cool. And I was like, why don't we fucking have that as like an alternative for this for the game series? Because it could have been a cool way to like especially in the world of fucking multiverses, you know, that's been happening forever. I was like, why not just do something kind of cool with it? That being said, though, um, with no frame of reference for that, every time somebody watches this movie, I could absolutely see how all of the changes are egregious. I could see how the story is irredeemable, the world is irredeemable. While I can truly say that I love the world that they built, I do. I really do love overall the world that they built in this movie.
You love it.
It, I do. I do.
Mhm.
Like you know, I gotta say, like hearing you describe the things throughout, and people who are watching this on YouTube will be able to see it. Like I'm smiling through a lot of what you say. The crazy fucking cars that shoot electricity. Why is that there? I don't know, but I love it. The it's basically what it was Manhattan, but it's just like completely different, and it's destroyed, and it's dingy, and it's all this stuff because Bowser's not or King Koopa's not taking care of it. I thought that was awesome. There was a lot of things about this movie that I really did enjoy, and I would have liked to have seen some things from this movie implemented into a Mario game, whether
Okay,
it's a standalone or whatever. But
that. I'm glad you said that because that helps me articulate something. You know, what I'm trying to get at is no matter how interesting this world may seem to me, I would never want to play a game like a Super Mario Brothers game like this.
and that's fair.
You know, I might be interested to play a game like this. You know, this isn't a world lacking in cool shit.
Yeah.
I will say the I think the only time I laughed out loud though in the movie,
Oh
um,
no. Was it an unintentional moment? Like they didn't
it was
try to make you
intentional. No,
laugh?
it was
Oh, okay.
intentional. It was when Bob Hoskins pulled out the little bomb and he just unwinds it and he puts it down. And this Hopper just like this watches this thing approach him, and then it falls down. And in one of the most clever ideas to me, like this thing actually like keep coming back to this thing, like it's still walking along, it's still chugging
Yeah.
along. You come back from the action to that, and then finally it pays off, it blows up. That was actually a thing that I felt like was from the game. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that I actually said, this reminds me of Super Mario Brothers.
I really did think that was something that reminded me of Super Mario Brothers. I thought that was a very funny moment.
Mhm.
I loved that moment. It was great. It's so funny because like they and it's weird to say this because even though I thought the movie was really funny with its comedy, I didn't think it was it was paced very well.
Mhm.
As far as like the comedic tone that it was going for. That being said, though, like that scene was done to perfection. Like it goes almost nearly silent when it starts walking along the little metal, and then it just fucking drops, and they go to battle, and then you just cut back and forth to people being fucking terrified of this thing,
Yeah.
and we're all just sort of laughing at it, but then it explodes, and it pays off well. So well paced comedic scene, even though I think much of the rest of the movie was a little bit off with the pacing of the comedy.
It's just bad with pacing in general. I mean, I can't.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, how long does it take before they even get into their plumber outfits? How long does it take for them to get into the world? I mean, we haven't even talked about any of the stuff that's set in Brooklyn. Like, there's like this mafioso who's like, um, I don't know why he's there. It almost felt like he was a red herring, but it's something they threw in there to cause a
Yeah.
little bit of conflict in the first act.
Well, it helps him get into the world, you know, because if he wouldn't have flooded that area, it probably wouldn't have, put them down there. And if it wouldn't have put them down there, then Daisy doesn't get into the world that they get into. So,
It does now. This
and he gets turned
character,
into a monkey,
yeah,
which is
which
another fucking hilarious part of the movie where
that
Dennis
gives Dennis
Hopper,
Hopper his best line in the movie.
monkey. I
Um,
loved it, dude. I absolutely loved it. It was amazing.
it didn't even feel like Dennis Hopper was acting when he said that.
No, it felt like he was genuinely happy to see somebody to see a monkey on set.
Yeah.
It's like they were like, "Hey, Dennis, close your eyes." Then they brought the monkey in the suit. It's just monkey. Oh, that was great. I laughed so fucking hard. Did
Yeah.
you? Now, is that another moment that made you laugh in the movie, or were you just done by then?
There's something between a laughter and a gasp that I did. Like something about that moment felt so surreal to me. Like it didn't
Oh
feel like I was
shit!
watching a movie. It didn't feel like I was watching a story
It
or a
just felt
character.
so genuine.
I felt like it felt. You know what it felt like? It felt like I was watching an outtake. It felt like they put an outtake into the movie.
It did. It did. Oh man. Oh, my
It's
face
definitely one of
hurts.
the more charming little moments of the film for sure.
That justifies his existence enough for me, you know? Not so much putting him in the world. Just if he's there for us to laugh at when he gets turned into a monkey, I'm a happy guy.
And you know, it would have been amazing if when the Twin Towers disappeared, then you saw the planes coming in, and they're like, "Oh shit, we missed them," and then but
Oh no. If we had not gone off the rails before right now, we are off the rails. Holy
this
shit.
movie rails has no business being in a conversation about the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh fuck. Oh man. God, you know, this movie I had a feeling it was gonna be a conversation, especially when we got to this area that just went off the fucking rails.
Yeah,
And we're there. I mean,
I think
there's
I think this movie was made for podcasts. Like I
Oh my
think,
God, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better movie for like people to like pop culture minded people to talk about than this. Because Batman and Robin is, for all of its many glaring flaws, I mean, it's still a Batman movie. It knows what the character
Yeah.
is about. It knows what characters are supposed to look like vaguely. It it knows that Batman is a guy named Bruce Wayne who lives in Gotham City. Like this movie doesn't even know what it's talking about. It doesn't even know what it is about, is how it feels. Like, would you be shocked if you heard that the filmmakers had never played the game? No, if they had never heard of Super Mario Brothers before.
Um, I would, because some of it seems, like I said, some of it seems
Okay.
so genuinely hatred of the source material. You know what I mean? Like there's so much malice behind some of the changes in this that I'm like, they had to have known what
But see,
Mario
that's what
was
really
to hate
scrubs.
it.
Like, that's why I can't like call this movie charming, because it's driven by contempt, and contempt is like really not an endearing quality.
See, I'm gonna agree with you in some cases, but I'm also gonna disagree with you in this case because it also on the other side of that felt like, I was really surprised to see that Bob Hoskins and Dennis Hopper and everybody else had a miserable experience with this, because on film it looks like they are having a complete blast with this movie, and I think that's just because they were like, "Hey, I don't know what the fuck this is gonna be. This is not fun every time these fucking directors talk to me. So I'm just gonna do whatever I can to make this a fun experience." And for
Hmm.
that, I can have fun with it, and I think it does give it a lot of charm. Because there's an air of like, I don't give a fuck, but I want to have fun with this, and it felt like everybody did that. Even the his little sidekick. What was her name? Her name was Lena. She was in
The
the fucking
chick who
Harry Potter
stabbed
movies.
Yoshi. Okay, when that moment happened, when she
Oh,
stabbed
that's another
Yoshi,
fucking thing.
I nearly cried.
Oh no, yeah,
I
I was
felt
so sad.
so violated watching this woman stab Yoshi, who's been
Oh yeah,
reduced to. I mean, it was like really. That's actually a moment that unsettled me. Like seeing Yoshi reduced to this poor, pathetic creature
I was really that it was
chained
so
up
sad, man.
in a dungeon. It just felt wrong.
it it did what it was supposed to do for me, which made me like, I wanted to see this character die now. And
Uh,
this is not, I don't know like we talk about that in horror sometimes, where a character is just
yeah,
so insufferably annoying that you just want to see him die, and that's the point of their existence. They made me hate the villains at that point because they are keeping, and you know what, like Yoshi's design was not perfect in this, but I didn't think it was all that bad. It's a change for sure, but
uh,
it wasn't awful for what they were going for, and I thought it was an adorable little
just
creature,
like
and
it
then
just
to
felt
see
like
her
what.
hurt it.
Like, imagine if they walked into the dungeon and there was this like animatronic frog, this poor lonely frog in there, and somebody was like, "Ah, I see you've met Kermit." You would feel, like this thing that is so pure to you has been debased. It's been wronged.
I want to see that, so please, if anybody is out there in the realm of Hollywood, please, for the love of God, get somebody who absolutely fucking hates the Muppets
How
to
dare
make
you?
a
How
live action
dare
Muppet
you?
movie, because I want to see that happen so fucking bad now.
No, no, no,
Please,
no,
please
no.
do this.
Vetoed.
Please, I am calling for chaos.
Do
I
not
want
fuck with the
chaos.
Muppets. Dude, no joke. The Muppets,
Give me chaos.
the Muppets kind of got me through the pandemic in like a small part, like
Oh
rewatching the
shit.
Muppet movies. So no, do not take the Muppets away from me in this cruel
Please.
world.
Please. Oh my god.
No,
Oh,
actually,
you should never have said that. Now I'm gonna make it my life's mission to make that
okay.
movie.
All right. I actually want to bring up something though. They're making a Winnie the Pooh horror movie.
Yes, I really want to see it.
Yeah.
It looks fucking awful and amazing at the same time.
See, shots of this movie feel like that for Super Mario Brothers.
Come on, that's too far now. That's too far now. This movie doesn't go that
Is
far.
it?
No,
No,
it doesn't
no,
go that far. Well,
I don't
now
know.
I am interested to see. I don't know if it'll happen in our lifetime, but if it does happen in our lifetime, where Mario enters the public domain, how fast will it be before somebody makes a Mario and Luigi slasher film? I don't know. It's something. I mean, fuck, the Grinch is fucking in a slasher movie now, so off limits for any character,
Yeah,
right? Winnie the Pooh and the Grinch. So, oh well. But no, and in all. So okay, we've talked a lot about the issues and the changes. Were there any other changes that you wanted to bring up in the movie that people had some issues with? Because I
um,
think anything that they changed, people really didn't fucking like.
yeah.
But
I mean,
no, the fucking Goombas. We got to talk about the Goombas. I know you
okay,
said your opinion, but reiterate that for me.
yeah,
You
yeah,
like the
yeah,
Goombas?
yeah. That's the only change that I actively liked and got a chuckle out of. Um, there is something unsettling though sometimes about them. Like when there's a close up of them, they actually creep me the hell out. But that scene in the elevator where they're kind of dancing, that was kind of funny.
I
That was
like
really
that
cute.
scene. I thought that was
Um,
funny.
that was
How
fun.
about when Toad is turned into a Goomba?
No, that felt wrong. That felt like okay. There's something about seeing a person's body changed against their will on screen that is actually it's like my the thing that gets under my skin the most.
Oh, okay, so like
Um,
it really like is like for some people like medical scenes really bother them. Like that's something
yeah,
that
or
bothers
like
you.
how some people are claustrophobic.
Yeah.
That is that's my sort of personal fear.
Okay.
That's why that's why stuff like The Thing or Cronenberg's The Fly is so
Human
effective to
centipede.
me. That's why I will never watch The Human Centipede.
Good. Please
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. So and they try to play it off for laughs, but there is actually something that I really find disconcerting about that, even that concept that they introduced into the movie. That's what the Goombas are. And maybe that makes me sound like a big old wimp, like I can't handle the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I really can't. This movie got under my skin, like in a lot of ways.
Isn't that funny? Like, I want to analyze that for a
Yeah.
moment because, like, we met through the horror community. Like,
Yeah.
we love horror films, and one of the filmmakers that we champion on this show, we talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 all the
Yeah.
time,
And his other
is
work,
Rob Zombie, and
that we
he
find
is
brilliant.
infamously known as a disgusting film director. His movies, like, I think,
Uh,
what is it? We watched a movie who always says like they feel like they need to take a shower after
sure.
watching one of his films. Um, it's just kind of funny, it's funny to look at that you could watch one of those films and be just okay, but
Now,
or even
obviously,
Saw, like you
I mean,
said.
those movies, obviously, I mean, it does trigger a reaction.
Oh
Like
yeah, for sure, yeah.
it's unpleasant. In an artistic fashion. But this movie, this is great that you brought this up because it's something that I would love to talk about. When a disgusting idea is presented as disgusting, you know, I mean, that's you meeting the film on its own on its own terms, and
Hmm.
you process it as traumatic because that's what's intended. But when a movie lowers your guard by pretending to be a children's adaptation, like a children's movie, like an adaptation of a children's video game, when it's presented childishly and innocently, that to me is more disturbing because it lowers your guard and it slips in a really insidious idea into you when you weren't prepared for it. It's like how Houdini died from a punch because he wasn't prepared for it. That's how I
Yeah.
feel in this debate. A Rob Zombie movie, I am mentally prepared to take on those ideas. And with this movie, I did not know what I was getting into. I felt like I was in a bear trap the whole time.
That is like, I never really thought of it that way.
Mhm.
I don't think anything in this film, don't get me wrong, I definitely have those things. I have those things in films that just bother me. I can't do it. This wasn't one of those things. Nothing in this film was like, too far for me or too gross for me, which is why I said, like, I can't dispute that people would find this movie gross, but I can dispute that it made me, I didn't find anything overwhelmingly gross in this. There was, obviously the gross part that I mentioned before about the weird, fungus mushroom guy. But other than that, like, it really didn't get on my nerves too much. It didn't really bug me too much. But it's an interesting discussion because that's like, if you're going into a film expecting one thing and then you get another and it's presented in a funny way, because that is, I mean, the rest of that movie, that is like, it's a butt of the joke that he's like the Goomba that's like turning good and like he's really goofy and he's laughing and he's making all these crazy facial expressions like a fucking gremlin. And that's the joke. And
Mm.
so I can see like if that's something that bothers you, I see that that would be a problem. So
Yeah, and it's a personal thing. This movie actually hit a few nerves for me watching it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like I had to shut off the movie or I had to close my eyes.
right.
Um, it is just in a movie that doesn't have a lot going for it. It did not help. I mean, it turned a bad movie into a pretty unpleasant watch, frankly.
Hmm.
That being said, the comedic mileage I got out of watching this with my friends who knew even less about this movie than I did redeemed that quite a bit, because holy shit, did we lose our minds watching this movie.
Does that help your enjoyment of it overall?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
does that is that going
Oh
to
yeah.
factor in your final verdict?
Oh yeah. No, let me say this. And I imagine we're approaching our final verdict soon. Um, there is a rewatchability in a very specific way with this movie. I would rewatch it with somebody who, again, was like either not prepared or up for it. Like somebody who will find this movie as insane as I do. I would be really interested if I started watching this movie and I laughed at, unintentionally at all those parts, and somebody turned to me and said, "What are you laughing at? Like, this movie's really good." We would just exchange glances for the rest of the running time.
I agree with there's a few movies that I think fall into that category for me. Both in a good way and in a bad way. Like
Mhm.
one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite horror movies ever is a movie called Hausu. And anybody who's seen
Yeah,
that movie knows
yeah.
how absolutely fucking batshit that movie is. But I want to show it to somebody who has no context going in. And I cannot wait till I get that day. That day comes. This movie's gonna fall into that category for me. It's not for me and my rewatchability. I'll kind of get into that when I get to my final
Mm.
verdict. But it's one of those movies that I just like. I have on a very short list of movies that I'm like, okay, if I ever get the chance to just fuck with somebody, and I'm just like, hey, I got a movie for you. This
Yeah,
is one of those movies that I will show them, knowing
yeah.
full well what their reaction will be.
If I ran a theater, um,
Dude,
and,
not that bad theaters. We're starting it. It's gonna be a thing.
so if I ran a theater and it's the day of the release for that new Super Mario Brothers movie, and a bunch and the theater was packed,
Holy shit.
I would put this movie on instead.
Could you fucking imagine?
I think I would die. That would be a riot, or a lynching
Holy
mob.
shit. If all of the cuz I imagine that a lot of people who are the parents who are bringing their kids to these movies are people who would have grown up around the time that this came out.
That's a crazy thought, isn't it? That's absolutely insane, but you're right.
1993. This was released in 93. I mean, fuck. I mean, people my age are bringing kids to the movies now, or people our age, I should say. It's not like you're fucking
Really?
older or younger.
I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
anybody. I mean, you're married, I'm engaged, but I don't know anybody my age who has kids.
Oh yeah, I know a couple,
Okay.
but they're I'll say this uh, when this movie came out for the next couple of years, like home media releases and stuff, I can imagine a lot of kids were disappointed, which is why I think this film really hasn't reached the cult status that it has, that I think it's going to its full potential as a cult movie, because people
Full
like
potential
us,
cult movie. Yeah.
well, no, well, truthfully, like I think it sort of like skipped our generation in a way,
Yeah.
like we're like, especially like the cuspers, we very much belong to that category.
Uh-huh.
This was not a movie that we grew up with. I mean, I don't know anybody that grew up with this fucking movie.
I never watched it as
So
a kid. In fact, for a long time as a kid, I remember wondering, why didn't they ever make a movie of Super Mario Brothers? That seems like such an obvious thing to do. And then I just Googled it and I learned, oh, they did,
they did, and it
technically.
didn't turn out very well, did it? But no, and it's funny because like these kids now that are sort of younger than us are going to be growing up and getting older with this new version of Mario. And I'm curious how many of them, when they reach adulthood, will reach back into the vault and pull this movie out from somewhere. You can't stream it anywhere. Fuck. That's part of the reason why this was fucking delayed,
Can
because
I
I had to try to send
mention,
it to your house.
thank you. Can I mention that this is the shittiest DVD that I've ever inserted
Oh,
into a disc player.
I really regret not spending the $32 to get this on Blu-ray because this was not a good
This is
DVD
on
copy.
Blu-ray.
This is available on Blu-ray. It's $32 to buy on Blu-ray.
Okay, I might
Um,
get that. I'm not sure.
but yeah,
I might get that.
it's dude, I would love to fucking put this on 4K. This needs to be in streaming, okay? Disney, I think, owns this movie now.
I don't know if Bob Iger is ever gonna
Fucking
look at
put it
this
up
movie and
there.
say, "Yeah, I want this associated with our brand."
Fucking put it. I mean, look at the shit that they have on Disney Plus. Are you kidding me? Put this up
Okay,
there. They have all those shitty Home Alone sequels on there. This, come on, throw it up there.
okay. I don't know if the Home Alone movies failed the way this movie failed. So, by the way, this is not on Blu-ray. This is technically you can pre-order it, but that does not mean it's currently available in the US on Blu-ray.
Oh, that's interesting because when I was ordering the copies for us, it was available to purchase at that point.
Do you that might have been a different region, actually.
I did look into that. So Amazon said it was that it was region specified, that it wouldn't work over here. But I did some research on the release, and it was region free. I've seen a lot of movies do that on Amazon lately that are from another country, and they just give you the region warning.
Yeah.
I almost ordered it for us, but I was like, I don't know that I want to spend 60 something dollars on a release of this movie that I don't even know if my co-host is going to enjoy.
Coward.
Like, so I'm not gonna jump that far into the hole.
Coward. All right. Uh,
But
that being said, do you think it's a good time to go ahead and get to our verdicts here?
I do, and I'd love to hear yours. I'd love to hear where you land on this. Because I really like, I feel like I know where that's gonna go, but I'd like to
Yeah.
hear it. This movie has
Yeah.
it. By the way, everybody listening, we're getting to our final verdicts. Our final verdicts are either it's that bad, it's not that bad, it's actually good, or it's actually great.
Right.
And there's a
Right.
spectrum for that, obviously. But this has a 2.0 rating on Letterboxd. So what is your final verdict, good sir?
Isn't that like the second lowest movie we've ever talked about? That's above
Um,
Resurrections, above
yeah,
Halloween
Resurrections is
Resurrections.
1.7. So this is, I believe this is the second lowest rated movie we've ever covered.
Okay. By the way, can I just read a quick review here that I think
I would
maybe
love to
helps
hear
the
a quick
plot a little
review.
bit? Somebody said, imagine making a really fun, queer, Marxist, anti-cop kids film, only to have Hacks berated as one of the worst movies of all time because it's not a direct enough adaptation of some shitty video game. This person liked the movie quite a bit. They gave it 4 stars.
Oh.
And you can throw as many nice buzzwords at this movie as possible. I don't care. As somebody who has read the Communist Manifesto, this movie
Oh shit.
can kiss my ass because
Oh
I
my god.
I do not need this representing Marxism or any of that bullshit. Okay, God, that's like that right there is my least favorite genre of film criticism. It's like, oh, this is like vaguely nodding to some real thing that I agree with. No, no. Top Gun represents things that I despise, and I will watch that over this movie any day of the week.
Hmm.
That being said, this movie is well deserving of its disaster reputation. It is one of the most ill-conceived and misguided films of its time, perhaps all time. It kind of killed the genre of video game adaptations before it even started, so much so that we're only now getting to adaptations that are considered truly cinematic and respectable. A few inspired casting choices, some fun banter, and some interesting, if not distasteful production design and world building really didn't save this movie for me. The only thing that saved this movie for me was watching it with friends who thought it was just as bad as I did and enjoyed it. So I can't really defend it, and I'm gonna have to say it is that bad. It is that bad. Now, is it one of the worst movies of all time? No, no, and I don't know if people are saying that. I think it's one of the worst adaptations I've ever seen. that I can think of. So, that's the reputation. I think it's deserved. If it ever becomes a cult film, I think it'll be an ironic cult film, not one that people actually admire or respect. So, going off of that, man, am I curious to hear your verdict, because I don't know where you're going to land.
If you had to guess, where do you think I'm going to fall down?
I think you're going to say it's not that bad.
Okay. Well, all in all, like this movie is there's a lot of bad emotions and bad feelings around it, and that includes for me in some ways. This looked directly at the game that it was basing itself off of, and it took a shit just all over it. It was like, I don't care about any of that. In fact, some of that I hate. So I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to take what I do like from the game, which is very little, and I'm going to put it in this movie, and I'm just going to do my own thing. Complete lack of faith in the source material, complete lack of interest in doing something that the game fans would enjoy. And two directors that, by all accounts, should not have been making any films around this point in time. With that being said, fuck all of that, dude. Fuck all of that decisions, all of the things that they did in this movie that are awful. Fuck all of it, okay? This movie had a compelling, exciting world that they built. It had great chemistry between Mario and Luigi. Some awesome casting choices. I like the princess. I like the goofy fucking Goombas. I like the villain. I like a lot about this movie. And there are some moments in this that are hilarious intentionally, and there are some moments in this that are hilarious unintentionally. This movie is a fucking enigma. This is the most ridiculous shit that I have ever watched in my entire life. Does that make a great movie? Does it make a movie that's actually great? No, it does not. It does not make that movie. But does it make a movie that's that bad? To me, it does not. So does it make a movie that's not that bad, or does it make a movie that's actually good? And I'm going to say, fuck you. Fuck your feelings. This movie is actually good. Fuck you. Is that enough?
I don't know. I'm refusing to let you provoke me. I feel very baited right now.
Oh my god, I'm gonna go down in history as the man that baited his co-host into anger. No, like, all sincerity, there is definitely some tongue-in-cheek nature of what I said there. Like, this is,
I imagine
actually,
that's a very theatrical version of
oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, very, very theatrical. I truthfully, to be completely honest, like, I did the same thing in the Resurrection episode when I talked about the ending of H20 getting fucked with.
Yeah.
These are not feelings that I have this strongly. This is a movie that I think, like, to sort of hammer that down, actually good in this case is just pure enjoyment. Is it the best movie that I've ever seen? Absolutely not. Is there some things in this? Are there things in this that make it? That are things that would only be in a bad movie? 100%. But I not that bad did not feel good enough for me for a movie that was given a 2. I think it deserves much higher than a 2. So I think this is one that I could see myself throwing on and just having fun with whenever I want to watch a fun movie. It's added to my fun movies list, which includes some real heaters like Gremlins 2. And I can't wait to revisit this again. So definitely not actually saying fuck you to all the haters out there of this movie. But yeah,
I mean, I don't think either of us think that the hatred is unreasonable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this isn't one of those cases. I think even you would agree. I mean, if there's, I mean, with a movie that is this weird, frankly, it's hard to have like pure hatred for me, because there's a lot of fascination and there's a lot of curiosity, and this movie it's quite compelling in that fashion. In the words of the angry video game nerd, what were they thinking? That was just the question that ran through my mind at all times. I'm really curious to know if they at all anticipated the backlash to this. Like, I guess they thought since it was a video game, nobody would care if it was actually accurate.
Yeah, I wonder what their thought process was with that. I'd be interested to interview somebody who did this movie,
Yeah.
like one of the decision makers. I'd like to hear what they think.
Yeah. I know Bob Hoskins didn't even know what Super Mario Brothers was when he got cast.
Yeah, he said something about doing the movie for his kids somewhere in there, but like he didn't even know. I guess he told his kids what it was, and they were like, "Oh, cool, Mario," and he was like, "I don't
Yeah.
know anything
I
about
mean,
Mario."
he was doing a kids movie, or at least what was pitched as a kids movie. This is not a
Right.
kids movie.
I'd show it to my kids.
Really.
Oh yeah.
So when they're like, Daddy, what's Mario doing with that woman in the in the club?
Well, that's a good point. I haven't prepared for that yet. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of movies that I mean, fuck. I've definitely shown my kid The Grinch from 2000, and how, Dad, why is there a bunch of people putting keys in a jar? Well,
Just tell them it's a game. It's just a game.
well, there you go. They're just dancing. They're just dancing.
They're just playing a game. That Mario. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode as much as me and Connor enjoyed talking about this movie, this
Whew.
really, really infamous piece of work. I don't know if we'll ever talk about something that has as much going against it as this, unless we finally do talk about Batman and Robin, which, you know, that's a good segue because we do Patreon specials all the
Yes,
time
we
for our
do.
patrons, which because if you're listening to this, it's on Patreon. And if you're listening to this later when we've published it for everybody, then we would love for your support on Patreon so we could get to our goal of $100 a month so we could start putting out weekly content. And so you can continue listening to these specials as they come out in the future because, you know, our specials is when we save time for some really, really special occasions like this.
Yeah, and we have some really exciting content coming up too. Like the next two specials, I'm very excited for, especially the one that's coming up in March for everybody that is listening. That's going to be one that it's gonna take some time for us to get going with it and to get it how we want it to be. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I think that's just gonna get more fun over time. And of course, like Gabe mentioned, we have our goal of $100 a month to go to a weekly schedule. We've been really happy with the progress of the show so far. So if you do have a couple extra bucks you want to throw away, you can subscribe at any tier, any single tier, to get our specials that come every month. And if you subscribe at a $5 tier or higher, you get a free sticker too that you can put on your water bottles and all of your fancy at-home gadgets, if you will. But yeah, patreon.com/not that bad. If you don't want to support us there, though, or if you don't have the means, please don't feel terrible about that. We love all kinds of support. You can subscribe or follow us on all of our platforms. Of course, YouTube, everywhere you listen to podcasts, and across social media. We are at Not That Bad Pod on Facebook and Instagram, and at Not That Bad M as in movie, P as in podcast on Twitter. So come find us, come follow us, come talk with us. We're happy to support people who support us. And so thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you've all had a fantastic time watching Gabe struggle through this review of being uncomfortable
Struggle. Are you kidding me?
and me rant my way into a headache at the end of the episode.
I literally don't think I've laughed harder during a recording of an episode
Oh
than
man.
for this film. No,
Eh,
this
whew.
this movie is special. I mean, it was also this was the most therapeutic episode we've ever recorded because I really felt like I was really getting something out of my system when I was like
We should
when
have recorded this with you laying on a leather couch. I should have had a notebook ready for us.
hey man, I think everybody who has seen this movie could use some therapy.
Shit, I said it was actually good, and I can't disagree with you.
Oh dude, like the
I need therapy after this.
you
Oh
might need
shit.
something stronger than therapy. We'll leave that up to the audience. All right.
Yeah, more like I need a lobotomy at this
How
point,
much
man.
intensive care does Connor need for thinking this movie's actually good? No, I kid. I kid. Of
Oh
course, this is
man.
not a place where we bash other people's opinions. And truth be told, if there was somebody who was a very big fan of this movie, I would absolutely love to hear from them because
Yeah,
I just love to hear how other people, react to media, how, why we disagree. I love getting other opinions.
of
That's
course.
the point of even, engaging with other people. I think it should never be a bad faith attack. So please leave in the comments or let us know if you enjoyed this movie and why.
I would love to hear from those people. It's funny that you brought that up. I got really, I look back into our history as collaborators
Mm-hmm.
today through something that I was working on in regards to this service here, and in doing so, man, it's funny because like our whole collaborative efforts have all been based on two things: mutual respect for opinions on films, love of film, along with that, and this show is so much about that. Like we both mutually love talking about movies, but we also have a respect for what people think about
Mm-hmm.
movies, which is why we are covering movies that are very contested. There are a lot of people who will come and hate watch these videos and have, but there are also a good amount of people who will go, oh man, like I've been waiting for this movie to be covered like this
Mm-hmm.
because I love this movie. In fact, that just recently happened with me. I got a nice little message from a friend who's a big fan of Star Wars Episode 2 and sent us a very nice message about how much they enjoyed that episode. So, this is what we do this for, man. Like it's all about talking about movies like this. I thank you for being the one to sort of champion hard for this, being a part of our video game special, even though I'm the one that came out on the better end of this, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. We didn't mention that, but I did pitch this, even though I had not seen the movie yet. Which is an one that's unorthodox for this channel. Usually, we pick stuff that we know we like, but in this
Specials
case,
are special.
specials are special, and this movie has been spit upon for the entirety of its existence, and I wanted to give it a fair shake on this channel. And I didn't come out on the side of really defending it. But that being said, I hope at least that the fact that I gave the movie a chance, which I think is more than a lot of people are willing to
Oh
do,
yeah.
could be a hopeful sign for others out there. If I didn't like it, Connor liked it, so maybe you guys should give it a chance and see where you fall, because it's like a movie that's definitely interesting enough to worthy a watch. I will say that for a movie that I called that bad, it is worthy of a watch.
Yeah, and by the way, anybody who just heard Gabe say that, do not ever follow my example or listen to any advice that I give. Just want to throw that out there right now.
Okay. All
Don't
right,
listen to
never
the
mind,
guy
I
who said
guess.
this movie is actually good. No, like no, give everything a chance. I
Uh-huh.
say if you know you hate something, if you know you hate a genre or a filmmaker, and you don't want to go through that subject, just leave it. Leave that to people who enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't hate watch, but if you just want to try something, have a little bit of fun. This movie is one of those movies that you should definitely do that with.
Yeah. All right. Well, that being said, I think we've come to a perfect conclusion, and now it's time to take us out. Y'all, thank you again. If you're listening to this now, that means that you're a patron. And if you're listening, period, that means that you've supported us. We're so grateful, and we can't wait to keep bringing you content. We'll be coming out with another collaboration episode with Tony from Flopbuster slash The Headliner. And it's one of, I think, me and Connor's favorite episodes to have recorded. So be on
Yeah,
the
very
lookout
cool.
for that. And until next time, y'all, I'm Gabe.
I'm Connor.
This is Not That Bad, signing out.